They thought I'd beg for a seat at their Christmas table, but instead, I pulled the plug on the $1 million deal they depended on. The same family that once mocked me for being a failure had no idea that the contract keeping their business alive was under my control. One call from me, and their empire began to shake. Before I continue, make sure to hit that subscribe button, share this video with your friends, and drop a comment below, because what happens next will leave you speechless. For years, I was the one left out, ignored at family gatherings, laughed at from my small apartment, and whispered about as the broke one. My sister Emma would smirk. "Victoria, you can't even afford gifts. Why bother coming?" My parents never defended me. Instead, they looked away, pretending her cruelty was just a joke. But what none of them knew was that I had been working day and night, building something far bigger than they could ever imagine. When the Christmas invitation never came this year, I wasn't surprised. The family group chat was filled with plans for their lavish party, pictures of decorations, and jokes about how Victoria is probably too busy eating instant noodles. They thought I wouldn't find out, but of course I did. And that's when the irony hit me. Their business, the one they flaunted every holiday, was about to finalize a major deal with a company I secretly owned. I held the contract in my hands that very night, staring at the names they signed so confidently, not knowing my name was behind it all. They wanted to erase me from their Christmas, but in reality, I held the power to erase their wealth. And when the party lights went up and their laughter filled the mansion, they had no idea what was about to crash down on them. The night of their Christmas party, I drove past the glowing mansion where my entire family was gathered. Cars lined the driveway, music blasted through the walls, and laughter echoed like a cruel reminder of how easily they excluded me. I parked a few blocks away and stared at the house, gripping the envelope that held their fate. It wasn't just a contract, it was their survival, their $1 million deal that kept their business running. And tonight, I was ready to make them choke on their arrogance. Inside, my sister Emma was the star of the night. She strutted across the hall in her red velvet dress, holding a glass of champagne. "Here's to family," she laughed, clinking her glass with the others. Well, most of us. They all laughed with her, pretending I never existed. My parents beamed at her, proud of the daughter who looked perfect on the outside but rotten underneath. While they toasted to their success, I made a single phone call. My lawyer's voice was calm but sharp. "Victoria, are you sure? Once I make this move, their deal is terminated instantly." "Yes," I said, my eyes fixed on the glowing windows of the mansion. "Do it now." Minutes later, chaos erupted inside. Emma's phone buzzed first. She read the email and her smug smile froze. "What?" she gasped, stumbling backward. My father grabbed the phone, his face draining of color as he read the words. "Your contract has been officially terminated. Effective immediately." Whispers spread like wildfire. "What happened? The deal is canceled?" But that was worth millions. Their proud Christmas atmosphere turned into panic. Emma's husband snapped, "Do you know what this means?" "We're ruined!" My mother's hands shook as she asked, Who has the power to cancel this?" I stepped out of my car and began walking toward the house, each step heavy with the years of silence, humiliation, and betrayal I had endured. They thought I was invisible, but tonight, every eye would be on me. The door swung open before I even knocked. My father's face went pale. "Victoria," he whispered as if he had seen a ghost. I smiled faintly and said, "Merry Christmas." The entire hall went silent when I stepped inside. Forks froze mid-air, glasses trembled in their hands, and every smug smile melted into disbelief. The girl they mocked, erased, and replaced was now standing at their grand party like a storm they never saw coming. Emma's eyes narrowed, her voice dripping with venom. "What are you doing here? You weren't invited." I tilted my head, scanning the glittering decorations, the golden lights, and the expensive champagne. "Oh, I didn't come for your invitation," I said calmly, my voice steady and cutting through the air. "I came for my business." My father's brows furrowed. "Your business? What nonsense." I cut him off, pulling the envelope from my clutch and holding it up. "The deal you just lost? That was with my company. I own the corporation that held your contract. The same contract you depended on to keep your empire alive." Gasps rippled through the crowd. My mother's hand flew to her chest, her lips trembling. No, this can't be true. Emma laughed nervously, but her voice cracked. You? A company? Stop lying. You couldn't even what? I snapped, stepping closer. Couldn't even survive without you? Couldn't even build a life of my own after you all abandoned me? That's what you thought, right? I took a deep breath, then let the truth spill out. While you were busy pretending I didn't exist, I was building an empire in silence. I worked day and night, every insult you threw at me fueling me to rise higher. And now, everything you own rests in the palm of my hand. Whispers surged through the guests, some shaking their heads in awe, others glaring at Emma and my parents. The humiliation burned on their faces like fire. Emma lunged forward, her voice trembling with desperation. You wouldn't dare destroy your own family. I smirked. Family? A family doesn't cast out their own blood like garbage. A family doesn't laugh while their daughter suffers alone. You stopped being my family the moment you chose pride over love. My words hit harder than any slap could. My father lowered his head. My mother's eyes brimmed with tears. And Emma was left speechless, her fake confidence crumbling in front of everyone. I turned, walking toward the door. Merry Christmas. Enjoy the ruins you built. And with that, I left them standing in their golden hall, surrounded not by celebration, but by the ashes of their pride. The murmurs in the hall only grew louder after I left my words hanging in the air. Every guest had their eyes fixed on Emma and my parents, their whispers spreading like wildfire. Some shook their heads in disgust. Others smirked at the downfall of the family who once carried themselves like untouchable royalty. Emma, unable to bear the humiliation, clenched her fists and stormed toward me. You think you've won just because you embarrassed us tonight? You'll regret this! Her voice was shaky, her perfect mask cracking in front of everyone. I turned slowly, my heels echoing against the marble floor, and looked her dead in the eyes. Regret? No, Emma, I don't live in regret anymore. That was your gift to me years ago. Tonight, I'm just returning it. Gasps escaped from the crowd as I walked further into the center of the hall. I could feel every eye on me, but I stood taller, unshaken. For the first time, I wasn't the forgotten sister or the weak daughter. They saw me for who I had become. One of the major investors approached cautiously, his eyes filled with curiosity. Is it true? You're the CEO of Aurelian Enterprises. I nodded without hesitation. Yes, the very company that saved industries while others collapsed during the crisis. The same company that now holds the contracts your so-called power couldn't secure. A hush spread again, followed by a few people clapping softly, then louder, until the hall erupted into applause. Not for Emma, not for my parents, but for me. Emma's face flushed crimson, her jaw trembling as tears welled in her eyes. She had lived her whole life in the spotlight, feeding off praise. But tonight, for the first time, the applause wasn't hers. I leaned closer to her, lowering my voice so only she could hear. Enjoy watching from the shadows, sister. It's where you sent me, but I made it my throne. Her knees wobbled, and I saw the weight of those words sink into her. Meanwhile, my mother whispered to my father, her voice breaking, We've lost her completely. He didn't respond. He couldn't. His silence was louder than any words he could muster. I turned away, letting them drown in the humiliation they once forced upon me, as the crowd swarmed me with respect and admiration they never thought I'd deserve. Emma wasn't finished yet. As the applause echoed through the hall, she staggered forward, her pride refusing to let her fall without a fight. Her eyes were wild, and her voice cracked as she screamed, "Don't believe her lies! She's nothing but a fraud who manipulated her way here." The room fell into silence once more. But this time, the silence didn't carry weight for me. It carried weight for her. Everyone's eyes narrowed, their expressions turning from pity to irritation at her desperate attempt. I didn't even need to respond. One of the investors, a tall man in a tailored navy suit, stepped forward. A fraud? He scoffed. I've personally signed contracts with her company. Without her strategies, my firm would have collapsed. You, Miss Emma, should learn the difference between power earned and power inherited. Murmurs of agreement spread quickly. Another guest chimed in. It's pathetic, really. Instead of congratulating her, you try to tear her down. Typical jealousy. Emma's lips trembled, her hands shaking as she tried to defend herself. No, you don't understand. But before she could finish, I cut her off, my voice calm yet piercing. Emma, stop embarrassing yourself. You've lived your whole life craving validation, but tonight, the truth stands in front of everyone. And the truth is, you can't dim my light anymore. Not now. Not ever. Her knees buckled, and for a moment, I thought she might faint. My parents rushed to her side, their faces pale and drained of all the arrogance they once wore so proudly. I looked at them one last time, not with anger, but with finality. This is the end of the game you played with my life. I built my empire from the ashes you left me in, and now I walk away with everything you tried to steal. The crowd erupted again, this time louder, more certain. I stepped out of the spotlight with my head high, leaving Emma and my parents behind, broken under the weight of their own downfall. For the first time, the hall didn't feel suffocating. It felt like freedom. The air outside the hall was crisp and cool, but inside me burned a warmth I hadn't felt in years. Victory, not of money, but of finally being free. I paused on the steps, listening to the muffled chaos still echoing behind me. Emma's shouts, my parents' panicked voices, the crowd whispering my name instead of theirs. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the forgotten daughter. I was the name that mattered. I pulled out my phone, and dozens of messages flooded the screen. Investors congratulating me, journalists begging for interviews, even old friends who once ignored my calls suddenly remembering me. But I didn't smile at their words. My victory wasn't for them. It was for the girl who once cried alone in her room, wondering if she would ever matter. A sleek black car pulled up, my driver stepping out to open the door. I glanced back at the mansion one last time, the same place where they once laughed at me, belittled me, treated me like I was nothing. Tonight, that house became their prison of shame. I whispered under my breath. You canceled my invitation, but you'll never erase my name. Sliding into the car, I didn't look back again. The doors closed, the engine roared, and as the city lights reflected in the tinted glass, I felt the weight lift off my shoulders. My past no longer controlled me. My future was mine alone, and somewhere deep inside, I knew this was only the beginning. And if this story gave you chills, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because more shocking stories are coming your way.